Welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Superstock company spotlight. We have a special live chat here. Today we have with us NexTech CEO Evan Gappelberg. He is joined by the new COO Eugene Winchell. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks, Jack.
Good morning.
Eugene, welcome. I think one of the highlights of today's live chat really is going to be for investors to learn a little bit about you, what you're bringing to NexTech, how you're going to take NexTech to the next level, and to from $4 to $40. So that's going to be one of the highlights. We'll open up for some questions from the audience. So I think Eugene, the main, let's kind of start off with you, and then we'll ask Evan some questions, get some of the highlights of what's happening. It's been an action-packed week. So Eugene, you're joining NexTech from SAP, which is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise software company. What made you decide to join? I think you spent 18 years there, right?
Yes, I did.
What made you? So what made you decide to jump from that huge company to a scrappy startup?
Well, number one, I wouldn't call it a scrappy startup. I think Evan has put together an amazing platform and amazing products that we can, so to say, build now solutions around it. And me, like you mentioned, like I'm coming from SAP. As you know, like SAP has expertise in 25 industries, from automotive over banking, chemicals, oil and gas, like public sector, like you name it, we have it, so to say. And I think for me, it was very important to sort of say, like, when I talked to Evan, I could see the vision of where he sort of say likes to take the company. And I really loved of how he sort of say, like, it's bringing all these different pieces together, like augmented reality, obviously one of the biggest trends for us to come. You see like companies like especially Apple, Google, Facebook, all of them are going into augmented reality. And if these guys are going there, there is something behind that. So for me, it was like, okay, augmented reality by itself is already very, very interesting. But then Evan told me like, hey, by the way, I made this acquisition recently where I have this virtual events platform. And like on my background, like I spent 18 years at SAP in different roles. I was in the industries organization. As I mentioned, I covered 25 industries. I spent 6 years in marketing. I worked directly with and for the CMO in New York. I ran events myself, physical and digital events. So I know actually what it means, like when you have to cover 300,000 people at a trade show and you want to present your brand in the best possible way. What happens if that trade show doesn't exist anymore? Because there is at the moment, I would call it physical distancing. It's not social distancing, because we actually still need we still need to be social close to people. So what do you need? You need a virtual platform that, so to say, brings the physical world into the virtual world. And so when I talked to Evan and I saw like all the different pieces that he had, I said like, I love your portfolio. Let's put like let's put a red thread through it and bring all these pieces together and build, so to say, like industry specific solutions, line of business specific solutions where we can target, so to say, the marketeer, where we can target the digital business person, like the CDO that needs to run a digital business today. And today, obviously, everything, because of everybody, as I said, like calls it social distancing. I would rather call it physical.
I like it. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, for me, it's like we still need to do business, and business is a people person. So you want to meet with people, and you want to meet with more people than just like on the typical platforms that we use. We use Microsoft Teams, we use obviously Zoom, but that there's like limitations to when you want to run a virtual event. And so for me, I saw the huge opportunity and the vision that Evan puts together here. And I said, like, love the vision, love the team. I was able to talk not only to Evan, but to his leadership team, amazing people. And I said, like, I would like to be part of that family.
And so you ran some of the physical events at SAP also.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I've noticed like a lot of the software company, like everybody, like whether it's Salesforce, Apple, they all have these huge events which have like they get I think like 100,000 people show up. More. I think some of them have a couple 100,000, right?
Yeah.
And they're all like, I noticed in all the earnings calls, they're all talking about how they had to cancel these events, but now they're going virtual. They're going on they're doing virtual, and they're getting better results. They're getting better engagement. they're getting better sales. This is the key thing. They're getting better sales, better ROI. And so do you think that that NexTech's Inferno AR platform is like, it could be a big solution? Can you, in other words, is one of your goals to really get that into the, into all these companies?
Absolutely. And then you just mentioned something like, when you have a physical event, and I actually had built a solution to figure out of how we can actually measure, like we used IoT, how can we measure when people come to a physical event? You mentioned 30,000, 50,000 people. What is the content that they actually saw? Like how much time did they spend at this booth versus this booth? How much time did they spend, like you bring in partners, how much time do they spend at partner A versus partner B? Because the partners say like, hey, if you can bring me the stats or like the insights, the analytics that I had so and so many people coming to my booth, spending so and so many minutes or hours or days, I can actually get more marketing budget for next year. I can spend more money with you. So we actually, I myself with my team actually built a solution of how we could sort of say digitize the physical world. But the beauty is like in a virtual events platform, you have all of the statistics because they come, so to say, like as a byproduct, because you know that people, so to say, join room A, join room B, spent in, so to say, like a meeting environment. You have all these statistics in the virtual world as a byproduct. And so you can actually prove very nicely and very easily that this event has been very successful and potentially even more successful than if you had done it in a physical world.
Yeah, and I think also you mentioned, I think one of the hot buttons is then if you can show them metrics, you show them like the stats, what they're getting, then obviously they could, if they see they're getting results with X amount of budget, and then they can increase budget to add like the AR functionality. I know like from what I understand, Evan, like you mentioned, like one of the big things you're doing with these virtual trade shows is like you're basically showing them, okay, here is the basic thing, and now you can add the AR, all the other stuff, and with these booths, and all of a sudden, you're selling something for big money, like 6-7 figures.
Yeah, I was just looking at Bell Canada, which is an event that's going on right now. It's created a sizzle reel, and in that sizzle reel, where we're actually recording the event, we have a hologram of one of their senior VPs being placed in a room, so that everybody could kind of see this person as if they're live in the room with them. We also have a 3D booth, and there's a video, and it's all happening using augmented reality. And so Bell Canada, which is the largest telecom company in Canada, I mean, they're huge. They are using NexTech's augmented reality at their virtual event. And that's just one use case. We see this mushrooming throughout the globe, really. We see it as kind of this nonstop business opportunity where there's really no limit to it. There's no end in sight. And so we're just getting started, as you know, Jack.
Eugene, I want to ask you, because you've done physical events at SCP also. What do you think? Obviously, look, we all know that at some point, the pandemic thing is going to go away. People are going to go back to normal. But once this thing is out of the this kind of, once the genie is kind of out of the jar, so to speak, this companies realize, wow, they're getting big ROI. It's much easier, much better to do these virtual events. Do you think that this is essentially going to stay? In other words, like whatever they're doing with virtual is still going to stay.
Oh, Jack froze.
They're going to add physical, but now the virtual is going to be maybe like.
Jack, you're freezing.
I think we froze for a second.
Yeah.
Wait.
I think you're good now. Yep.
Okay. Eugene, did you hear the question? Were you able to get it?
I think it was.
I got the question. I think like in terms of like, what I know definitely is, to be honest, the next 6 months, no physical event I think will happen, or not many. And even if they happen, like who of us would like to go at the moment to a physical event? I think very, very few people, if at all. So I think the next 6 months, definitely virtual is the way. Then I already know for 2021, all the marketing teams, at least that I've been speaking to so far, say like, we are actually planning only virtual. Like we do not even go into physical. And you see like in the first half year of next year, so 12 months down the road is also like every physical event at the moment is being replaced or either canceled or replaced by a virtual one. So we already 12 months down the road, and then I personally believe even if we get the vaccine and even like we get it in a certain way of distributed to the public, I think it will take at least another 18 to 24 months until the people are really feeling comfortable again going to physical events. But by now, like now don't forget, like now we have broken that issue that, well, how do we actually run a virtual event? We know as a marketeer, you know how to run a physical event. You have your checklist, you know, first I have to book the booth, then I have to call my agency to do the layout of the booth, then I have to build the booth, then I have to do the marketing and the communication around it. Like you have your checklist, you go through this step by step. So now you actually have to do the same step-by-step thing, you just do it in a virtual world. So now what happens is you're creating that checklist for virtual events. And so now in the future, the question will be like, look, I had a very successful physical event, but I had an even more successful virtual event. So there's two options. Either like, why don't we just stay with the virtual events? Because by now we know how to run them, because we already did it at least once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, depending on how many events you run per year. You already know how to do it. Or you can actually say like, you know what, I actually saw the combination of the two, the hybrid approach could be actually also interesting, because I can address maybe 1,000 people coming physically to the event, but I can address 10,000, 100,000, 1 million people actually virtually coming that I'm not able to get on the plane and to come to my physical event. So you actually will do hybrids. So I think the virtual event will not go away. It actually might, so to say, definitely come as a second piece of maybe not even like the first priority for marketeers in the future.
Okay, so Eugen, so NexTech right now, the virtual events, the video conferencing business is doing. I mean, I think we're on a run rate of. I mean, are we approaching? I don't know, 5, 10. I mean, the business is scaling, right? But now, Eugen, you come up from a company where you're not talking about doing 10 million in revenues. You're looking at things that are doing projects, initiatives that do 100, 500 billion, 10 billion. So what are your, like, how big do you think the Inferno AR platform can get? Like, or I should say, how big and how quick can it scale over the next 12 months? And what are your plans to get it there in terms of from the operation side? Because I think that's a lot of execution needs to happen now.
Yeah, and I would say like as huge as humanly possible. And I think that's what Evan and I are working on, is like, how can we sort of say scale this to make it actually that we don't even have an issue about scaling it, because like, as you know, like you have cloud vendors that have scale outs that you can easily scale without hyperscalers that support any kind of growth. You expect an event with 1,000 people and suddenly 10,000 show up, no problem, the platform supports it. You plan something for 10,000 attendees, 100,000 show up, no problem. The platform supports it. I mean, just if you take a look of what Amazon, Google, and Microsoft do with their cloud platforms, they have scale out. Their scale is never an issue. So I think it's from our, like what Evan and I are talking about or have been talking about in terms of the growth for the company. We do not see any limits for that.
Okay. And another question I have for you, then we'll open up for some audience questions, is, so based on your career at SAP, the last 18 years, different roles, like what some of the, how you maybe if you can give us a quick recap of some of the things you did there, the highlights of different, because I know you did everything from AI to different projects. How are you going to apply those to NexTech, and then my last question is going to be like, what are your goals for NexTech over the next 3 to 6 months, and then over the next let's call it 18 months? I mean, I know it's short term, but our audience investors, they want to know what's happening tomorrow, not 3 years from now.
Yes, so definitely, like maybe to start with my background, as you mentioned, like I had various roles within SAP. I had COO roles, like the role that I'm taking now and will have with NexTech. I had on regional as well as global levels. So I know how to sort of say like run and manage an organization of a big scale. I also was running products. So as you mentioned, like I was in the AI field in artificial intelligence. So I built up an artificial intelligence product, like the digital assistant for the enterprise. We literally started on a blank sheet of paper and built a product that customers bought for 7-digit total contract values. Actually, over 100 customers bought that in a very short time frame. So I know not only how to build a product, like you can wake me up, I typically say like you can wake me up at 2 in the night and I know how to build a product. I also know how to sort of say build the messaging, the positioning around it. As I mentioned, I was in marketing, I ran events myself. So I bring sort of say like a variety of backgrounds. I was working on growth initiatives in the company where we grew the revenue based on my projects by 10% year over year. I brought some efficiency, like how to run development differently. So based on my projects, like SAP actually introduced Scrum at SAP. So things like that where we saved a lot of money, improved our portfolio. So there's a lot of background and experience I'm bringing to NexTech in terms of like how to run a company, how to grow a company, and how to sort of say like also do product and marketing campaigns.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think the execution as NexTech scales, that's going to be a key is to make sure everything is working. And especially also, we haven't even talked about all the other AR components of the business, and from the marketing stuff to also the e-commerce side of the business. So there's a lot of moving parts at NexTech.
That's for sure.
So Evan, I know you're on. You gotta get out of here by 1 o'clock. You have a hard stop at 1. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Jump right into the audience things. A quick recap. I know a lot of stuff going on, like new product, everything else. Give us a highlights of the revenue picture right now, and also what's happening with e-com and Infirmary.
Yeah. So I'm going to make it real simple because it is pretty simple. The story is we got started in 2019 and we ended 2019 with $6 million in revenue. And for the first 6 months of 2020, we've already exceeded our full year 2019 revenue. So we've done over 6 million in the first 6 months. In the next 6 months, we expect to very easily exceed our first 6 months. So in 2020, we're now in the third quarter, and I'm estimating that we will hit 5 million in revenue for Q3. If you think about that, that's almost the equivalent of what we did in 2019. What does all this add up to? And in Q4, I think we'll exceed that number significantly. So what does this all add up to? It adds up to a hyper growth stock. It adds up to a company that is growing very, very rapidly, where we're firing on all cylinders. The business is just growing very rapidly, and it's showing up in our revenue, and we just don't see it stopping. And Eugene is going to help us to grow even faster and achieve even more. And that's really the story. And so in 2021, which we already are starting to talk about, we can expect even more growth. And so that's really the story, I think, from the top level, is that we're in a very rapid growth phase for the company after spending 2019 really just building the foundation.
Okay. It's interesting. I think it was on your second live stream, Next Superstock live stream. I think this was back in September of last year. You did say NexTech is now entering hyper growth phase, and sure enough, is there. So the company has actually has followed up. So I think everybody, I guess, is asking this, which is NASDAQ. What's happening?
Yeah. So super simple to answer that question, Konstantinos. We are having our AGM, the board meeting today. And after today, we will be able to elect another board member that will give us the independent board member that we need in order to qualify for NASDAQ. It's the last piece of the puzzle. He's sitting there waiting for this annual AGM meeting to be over. So it's going to happen imminently as far as the board member, and it's all it's all lining up, and it's literally just a matter of a couple of days.
Evan, any comment? Yeah, you said it was 5 million in deals.
Yeah, deals are dropping every day. We will update our shareholders. We did come out today with the Carnegie Mellon deal, and everybody should understand. I'm not sure it was clear in the press release, but that press release was approved by Carnegie Mellon. They worked with us on that press release, and we're in the process of signing additional deals with Carnegie Mellon. There's a significant amount repeat business with Carnegie Mellon. It's not a one and done event. It's a relationship that today's announcement really just signified that we have a relationship, and now we're building on that relationship and signing more deals with Carnegie Mellon. And ultimately, our goal is for them to become like Ryerson University and have a license to our entire tech stack, and we're working towards that goal. So stay tuned.
Okay, we got a question here. Justin is asking about ad revenue. Can you have AR ad revenue in online events?
That's it. Yeah, I mean, there's sponsorship revenue that's built into those events. But I'm not sure about the 3D ads spinning around at a virtual event, but it's a very interesting concept, and I bring it up to the team.
Okay. What about the CES?
No news for you on CES.
That would be good. Okay, Anthony, Q3 guidance.
Yeah, we talked about that just a minute ago. We're estimating roughly 5 million for Q3, up from 3.5 million in Q2, 2.5 million in Q1. As far as the name of the Zoom lookalike, we're still working on that.
Okay. Any partnership with SAP?
Anything's possible. I mean, I will say that we're talking to a lot of big tech companies. SAP is just one of them that we are talking to, but there's others.
Okay. You have somebody from Shopify that's going to be joining the board?
No.
No. Okay.
He's not from Shopify.
Next earnings date.
We have not announced the next earnings date, Alon, but the quarter ends September 30th. So the quarter hasn't ended. Usually after the quarter, it's about 6 weeks until earnings gets released. Yeah.
Okay, we got time for a few more questions here, and let's see. Okay, so we got Amazon is releasing an AR shop experience. How does that impact NexTech?
So it's a huge benefit when Amazon comes to market with augmented reality. It really feeds the ecosystem and creates this need for people in the e-commerce to have augmented reality. Keep in mind, Amazon is a walled garden, and as we've said many times before, they're building their own technology in-house. They're not going outside to companies like NexTech. They would never risk their business with NexTech. They're just too big. So they build it internally. But once it's built, we have the opportunity to sell to the same e-commerce site owners, but not on the Amazon side, on their .com website where they sell, which could be on Shopify, let's say.
Okay. Justin is asking, AR University, possibility to work with physical universities, online only, to provide massive open online courses?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see here.
Maybe just to add, I think that was one of the, when I said like industries, I think higher education is definitely a very interesting segment to address. As you mentioned, like a lot of universities at the moment have the issue. We can't even let in, so to say, like the students into the country, because often the students are from overseas. The
Right.
country doesn't let them in. They have to attend somehow. So universities are turning to actually virtual classrooms out of the need to serve the students that are from overseas. And therefore it's a huge opportunity here. That's what I mentioned with like different segments. Like we have obviously healthcare is a very interesting one. Higher education is a very interesting one. The whole marketing area obviously is a very interesting one. So we have multiple areas that because you mentioned like what's the next 3 to 6 months out there, is Evan and I have been discussing, okay, we should, so to say, build industry specific solutions that can address exactly these issues.
Okay. Last audience questions, and then we'll wrap up. We got here Katie asking Eugen, what was your reaction when you saw NexTech's tech stack help transition from SAP easier?
Yes, it did. I actually asked for a few demos. So Paul actually, Paul Duffy gave me a few demos of all the products in multiple sessions, because one wasn't enough. Because as I mentioned, like the portfolio is quite big, and very, very interesting. And I said like, yes, absolutely, because I wanted to see like how real is, so to say, like that product portfolio, obviously before I make this move.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up. The last question for Evan, and then also bring you into this question, Eugen, is Evan. You know, the favorite question we always ask, you know, CEOs is, you know, top 3 reasons why investors should consider NexTech stock today. Eugen, you can chime in.
The top 3 reasons.
Top 3 reasons for buying the stock. Not that we're making recommendations, but you know.
Yeah. So the number one reason is that when you look at NexTech, the value prop is very, very strong. We have a diverse portfolio of hyper growth businesses. It's not one thing that you're investing in. You're investing in, as Eugene was saying, you know, augmented reality, telemedicine, ed tech, virtual events, and e-commerce. I mean, there is no other publicly traded company that I'm aware of that offers you the opportunity to invest in all those businesses simultaneously under one stock symbol. And so that's a huge piece. The diversified portfolio is a big part of our story. I think the management team is also a big part. Proven winners continue to win. Bringing on Eugene obviously just adds to our management team, and so you can expect even more wins. And I guess the last reason is, you know, right place at the right time with the right tech stack, meaning, you know, this work from home, shop from home, the pandemic really has put us into a favorable position in the marketplace. Without the pandemic, we would still be growing fast. With the pandemic, we're growing even faster still. So the pandemic actually has benefited our business. Not everybody can say that. Not every company is benefiting from a pandemic, but we are. So I would say those are the 3 top reasons.
Okay, Eugen?
Yeah, so I think I got one question that I got from somebody that I know. So like, so which is your favorite product from NexTech? And I said, like, to be honest, I like all of them. I said, like, I love all of them. And they said, like, no, but you have to pick one. And I said, like, I will not pick one, and I'll tell you why. It's not about the one product. It's about the combination of all of them together. Because when you combine all of them together, that's when the real power comes to, like, that's where the real power and the magic comes together. So as Evan said, there's no other vendor that has like that portfolio. And that's for me, again, coming to the next 3 to 6 months, is how can we sort of say show the value of this portfolio when it is combined as sort of say like that powerful solution for your respective need. And as Evan mentioned, the pandemic has sort of say like sped up the virtualization of events. Without the pandemic, that would have not happened that quickly. But now we have to, and it will change the world. And as I mentioned before, is the idea is really once the marketing people understand the value of a virtual event, I think they will not go back that easily anymore to a physical event. But they need to have a platform that they can trust and that they can see that can serve their needs. And NexTech has that portfolio, and Evan and I will, together with the rest of the team, make sure that it actually serves not only their needs, but actually wows them. So they should actually, when they see that whole combination of product combined, they will say like, wow, I didn't expect to see that. And this wow is what we are going for.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. That's why Eugene and I we work so well together, is that you asked me about, NexTech. It's all about the wow. That's why we started the business. It was about wow. And, I didn't give Eugene a script. He came up with that. And so we're on the same wavelength. The wow is the thing that gets me up every day. And it's the thing that really excites me, and it should excite our shareholders. Jack, on that, I do have to jump off.
Okay.
It's 1:02, but thank you very much, Jack, and thank you, Eugene.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you guys. We look forward to hearing more from NexTech in the coming weeks.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.